The silence in the Strait of Hormuz did not just break. It shattered into a million jagged pieces. At exactly 4:22 in the morning, the humid air over the Persian Gulf thickens with the scent of ozone and impending doom. Deep within a reinforced concrete bunker carved into the jagged cliffs of Bandar Abbas, a single finger hovers over a red glowing terminal. This is the moment the world has feared since the turn of the century. General Rezaei, his face etched with a decade of resentment toward Western hegemony, does not hesitate. He leans forward, his voice a low, guttural rasp that barely carries over the hum of the cooling fans. He utters two words that change history: launch everything. Suddenly, the night sky is torn apart by the roar of over 100 anti-ship cruise missiles. These are not just any weapons. They are the pride of the Iranian arsenal, Qadir and Ghadir missiles, screaming across the water at nearly the speed of sound, hugging the waves to avoid detection. Behind them, a swarm of over 50 fast attack boats and suicide drones roar to life, a mechanical hornet's nest designed to overwhelm, confuse, and drown the American giant in a sea of fire. On the bridge of the USS Gerald R. the atmosphere is not one of panic, but of a terrifying, surgical calm. Captain Rick Burgess stands perfectly still. He doesn't look at the windows. He looks at the blue-tinted glow of the holographic displays. The radar operators are calling out numbers with the rhythm of a heartbeat. 80 targets, 90 targets, distance 30 miles in closing. The captain knows that for the next 5 minutes, the eyes of the entire world are on this tiny patch of water. He knows that the $200 billion of American steel beneath his feet is the only thing standing between global stability and a third world war. The Iranian general thinks he has caught the lion sleeping. He is about to realize that the lion has been watching him to 1,000 digital eyes since the moment he entered the room. To understand why General Rezaei's gamble was a move of pure desperation, one must understand the beast he was trying to slay. The USS Gerald R. is not merely a ship. It is a 100,000-ton floating city of sovereign American soil. It is 333 meters of reinforced steel and titanium, powered by two A-1B nuclear reactors that could illuminate a mid-sized metropolis for 25 years without ever needing to refuel. These reactors provide 3 times the electrical generation capacity of the previous Nimitz-class carriers, turning this vessel into a massive, high-energy battery capable of powering weapons that were once considered science fiction. In the year 2026, the Ford stands as the undisputed apex predator of the oceans. While the Iranian fast attack boats look like gnats buzzing around a behemoth, the sailors inside the Ford operate with a precision that borders on the supernatural. Over 4,500 men and women are currently at their battle stations, moving through the labyrinthine corridors with practiced ease. They are protected by the most advanced armor plating ever forged, but their true shield is the invisible web of sensors that extends for hundreds of miles in every direction. The heart of the Ford's lethality is the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, or EMALS. For decades, carriers relied on violent, hissing steam catapults. The Ford changed the game. By using massive electromagnetic pulses, it can launch a 30-ton F-35C Lightning II into the sky every 45 seconds with the smoothness of a high-speed train. This isn't just a technical upgrade. It is a psychological weapon. It means the Ford can put more firepower into the air, faster and more reliably, than any other force in human history. But the Iranians believe they have found the Achilles heel. They think that in the narrow, claustrophobic waters of the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point only 21 miles wide at its narrowest, the giant is trapped. They believe that a swarm of hundreds of small, cheap targets can overwhelm the billion-dollar sensors of the American Titan. They see the Ford as a dinosaur in a world of agile, mammalian predators. What the commanders in Tehran fail to grasp is the dual-band radar. The Ford doesn't just see the incoming missiles, it categorizes them by their thermal signature, their flight path, and even the specific manufacturing batch of their guidance chips. As the missiles scream toward the carrier, the ship's computers are already calculating the most efficient way to delete them from existence. The Iranian general expected to see a panicked giant scrambling for cover. Instead, the Gerald R. Ford remains steady, its massive hull cutting through the dark waters of the Gulf, as if the incoming apocalypse were nothing more than a summer rain. This is the arrogance of supreme power, the quiet confidence of a machine that was built not to participate in a war, but to end one before the enemy even realizes it has begun. Then the silence of the bridge is punctured by a burst of harsh static over the international maritime hailing frequency. It is a sound that sets every nerve on edge, a digital scream before the storm. General Rezaei's voice, distorted by the encryption but unmistakable in its venom, fills the room. He speaks in English, his words chosen for maximum psychological impact. To the captain of the American intruder, you have violated our sovereign waters for the last time. Your steel fortress is nothing but a monument to a dying empire, a multi-billion-dollar coffin for 4,000 souls. Look at your screens, American. You are surrounded by 1,000 stings. You have 10 seconds to pray before the Persian Gulf becomes your graveyard. On the bridge of the Ford, no one flinches. There is no frantic shouting, no cinematic panic. Captain Burgess doesn't even blink. He simply turns to the communications officer and offers a sharp, almost imperceptible nod. But it isn't the captain who responds. It is Rear Admiral James Miller, the commander of the entire carrier strike group, who steps out from the shadows of the flag bridge. Miller does not yell. He does not posture. He speaks with a voice so cold and level that it sounds like a calculated death sentence. General, this is Admiral Miller. I am not praying, I am looking at you. And I don't mean your fleet, General, I mean you. Right now, a Predator C drone is hovering exactly 15,000 feet above your command bunker in Bandar Abbas. I am watching the heat signature of your breath on my secondary monitor. I can see the cigarettes your guards are lighting outside the heavy steel doors of your tactical center. He pauses for exactly 3 seconds, allowing the weight of that reality to sink into the Iranian bunker hundreds of miles away. Your missiles are currently being tracked by the Aegis Baseline 10 combat system. My computers have already assigned an interceptor to every single one of your stings. If you do not deactivate your guidance systems within the next 60 seconds, I will not only vaporize your entire assault force, but I will authorize a kinetic strike on your precise coordinates. You think you have trapped a titan in a cage? You have merely invited the lightning into your own house. Choose your next move very carefully, General, because I have already chosen mine. In the Iranian bunker, the air suddenly feels thin. Rezaei looks at his master tactical display. For the first time, he sees the ghosts in the machine. A squadron of F-35C Lightning II jets, which his radar operators swore were still on the carrier's deck, are suddenly appearing as solid locks on his coastal defense nodes. They had been flying in beast mode, with their stealth coatings absorbing every pulse he sent out, and now they were positioned for a decapitation strike. The general's hand, which felt so heavy with power just a minute ago, begins to tremble. He realizes that the Ford isn't just defending itself. It has already won the battle before the first missile even reached its mid-flight trajectory. The countdown to impact was less than 60 seconds. Across the dark, choppy waters of the Strait of Hormuz, over 100 Iranian missiles were screaming toward their target, their seeker heads locked onto the massive thermal signature of the USS Gerald R. Ford. To any observer on the Iranian shore, it looked like a wall of fire was about to swallow the American carrier. But inside the Ford's Combat Direction Center, the atmosphere was not one of a ship under siege, but of a predator closing a trap. Then it happened. The invisible shield of the United States Navy was activated. This was not a scene from a traditional naval battle. It was a digital symphony of destruction. The Ford's AN/SLQ-32 V7 electronic warfare suite, the most powerful system ever installed on a surface ship, roared to life. It didn't just jam the Iranian signals, it rewrote them. In an instant, the incoming Ghadir and Qadir missiles were flooded with false data. To their internal computers, the Fords suddenly seemed to vanish, replaced by 10,000 ghost targets scattered across the Gulf. On the Iranian radar screens, the world turned into chaotic white noise. General Rezaei watched in horror as his precision-guided weapons began to behave like drunken birds. Some veered sharply into the sea, exploding harmlessly against the waves. Others turned nearly 180 degrees, their hijacked sensors now locked onto the very Iranian fast attack boats that had launched them. "They've taken our eyes," a technician screamed in the Bandar Abbas bunker, but it was too late. For the few missiles that managed to burn through the electronic haze, the Ford's physical defenses were waiting. The evolved Sea Sparrow missiles and the RIM 116 rolling airframe missiles launched from their cells with a rhythmic, mechanical thud. They didn't just intercept the targets, they vaporized them 2 miles out. The night sky above the strait was illuminated by a series of blinding orange spheres, each one representing a multi-million-dollar Iranian failure. The final layer of the "then this happened" moment was the most terrifying for the Iranian sailors. As the swarm of 50 fast attack boats accelerated to within 5 miles of the carrier, expecting to find a crippled giant, they were met by the Phalanx close-in weapons system. The 20-millimeter Gatling guns, capable of firing 4,500 rounds per minute, created a literal wall of tungsten and lead. It wasn't combat, it was a harvest. The sea was churned into a red froth as the Iranian boats were shredded before they could even bring their short-range rockets to bear. In less than 300 seconds, the full-scale attack had been reduced to floating debris and smoke. Not a single piece of Iranian shrapnel had even scratched the paint of the Gerald R. Ford. The carrier sat motionless in the center of the carnage, its lights still burning bright, its crew still calm, and its nuclear heart beating with the steady rhythm of a superpower that had just reminded the world why it sits at the top of the food chain. The message was sent without a single American sailor losing their life. You can launch everything you have, but against the Ford, everything is simply not enough. The silence that followed the final explosion was louder than the roar of the missiles. In the command bunker at Bandar Abbas, the glowing red tactical map had turned into a graveyard of blinking gray icons. General Rezaei sat motionless, the cold realization washing over him that his grand swarm had not even forced the American giant to change its course by a single degree. The USS Gerald R. Ford continued to steam forward at 30 knots, its massive weight cutting through the oil-slicked remains of the Iranian fast attack fleet. This was the silent echo. It was the message sent not just to Tehran, but to every capital city on the planet. The age of asymmetric dominance in the Strait of Hormuz had ended the moment the Ford's electronic warfare suite rewrote the rules of engagement. For the next several hours, the world watched in stunned disbelief as satellite imagery revealed the scale of the failure. Not a single American sailor had been injured. Not a single piece of hull plating on the carrier had been breached. The Ford had simply swatted away a full-scale assault as if it were a minor inconvenience. In Washington, the president was briefed within 6 minutes of the final intercept. There were no victory parades, no loud declarations of war. Instead, the United States issued a brief maritime notice. The Strait of Hormuz remains open for international commerce. Any further interference will be met with the same surgical finality. It was the ultimate display of power, the ability to destroy an entire regional strike force and then simply go back to work. By dawn, the only thing left of the confrontation was a few plumes of black smoke drifting toward the horizon and a humiliated Iranian leadership scrambling for excuses. The world had seen that the Titan of the 2026 Navy was more than just a ship. It was an insurance policy for global stability, written in steel and nuclear fire. The legend of the USS Gerald R. Ford had been cemented, not in words, but in the cold, hard reality of a battle that lasted less than 10 minutes and changed naval warfare forever. Thank you for watching this episode of our deep dive analysis. If you found this breakdown of the USS Gerald R. Ford's capabilities and the tactical realities of the Strait of Hormuz insightful, we would be truly grateful if you could subscribe to the channel and support this video with a like. Your engagement is what allows our team to continue producing these high-intensity reports. We would love to hear your perspective on this confrontation. Do you believe that technological superiority will always outweigh the sheer numbers of a swarm attack in modern naval combat? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you find it difficult to put your thoughts into words, or simply have nothing to add at the moment, even a simple thank you in the comments would mean a great deal to our entire production team. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We value your time and your support.